Lauri Eberhart is the partner and founding member of Apollo Sports. Apollo Sports and Entertainment Law Group she was the general counsel and held executive positions for 12 years for Speedway Motorsports and Charlotte Motor Speedway. Her primary areas of practice are sports and entertainment law. She is an advocate for women, especially in male-dominated careers. Joining us on the panel, Stefy from Init Esports, the CEO of Init Esports. She has a focus on sim racing and development of women in gaming. The company develops athletes and brands in the motorsports industry with a particular attention to the electric motorcycle market and e-bike industry. She was born and raised in Italy. With strong support from parents, she pursued her dream to race in motocross. She's the first woman to win every round of the WMA National Championship in 1999. She holds 7 Italian National Championships, 5 U.S. National Championships, and 3 Women World Championships. Considered one of the fastest women motocross racers in the world before tragic injury, she now sits on the advisory board for Women in Sports Tech and mentors women in sports and gaming seeking to grow in the community. Welcome, Stefy.
Thank you.
Taylor Gach is the director gaming and esports at NASCAR. She has worked in entertainment and sports industry throughout her career. She got her start as a character actress for Disney, shaping her interest in sports and partnership sales for the Los Angeles Angels. Ashlee Huffman is the Vice President of Marketing and Partnerships at Andretti Autosport. She previously worked on the IndyCar team of the Arrow McLaren SP, JMI marketing agency serving brands across IndyCar, NASCAR, and Formula One, and got her start with USAC and NCAA. Angela Tagariello is the Manager of Sales and Marketing at iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. The manager in sales of marketing at iRacing.com Motorsport Simulation. She's been with iRacing since they opened in 2008, serving in numerous roles.
So happy to be here. Thank you, Lynn and Cindy, for the opportunity. This is fantastic. I learned something from yesterday and from today, and so I am unapologetically and authentically letting you know that I need to be your lawyer. Anybody who's here, I'm in the law business. I've been a motorsports lawyer my whole entire life, and I know everything that there is to know on that side, so I should be your lawyer. But let's get into...
yourself, told you. Love it.
Yeah. So let's get into what we're going to talk about, which is really technology and new media and things that are going on in the metaverse. I'm so happy to have all you ladies here. We're going to talk about the metaverse. We're going to talk about NFTs. We're going to talk about esports and gaming and really give an introduction to what they are, why you should be involved, and why you should care, really, about these new technologies. So first, I'm going to start off for each of you. We'll just start here and go down the line. How did you get here? Not how did you drive here, find the speedway, but how did you get to be in this position and be here?
All right, so as you heard, I'm from Italy. So I was a little girl with a big dream. I wanted to be a champion. And I had 2 incredible parents that helped me succeed in my career. And I continued to do this into this male-dominated sport that was motorcycle racing. So a couple years ago, I was back in Italy. I was visiting my family, and there was my little niece that I noticed she was spending 3 to 4 hours a day watching people playing video games. So I'm like, wait a second, what is going on here? So because I feel like I'm a person that tended to try to break that glass ceiling, so I'm like, I'm going to do something for women in this industry. So I created Init Esports, and Init Esports, first we fall back into the motorcycle world, because that's what I grew up doing. And so we became the partner with the AMA, which is the American Motorcycle Association. I went to them and say, we need to look at this. Kids are doing this. So if we want new people coming into motorsport as a whole, we need to watch this. And they say, perfect, you are the promoter now for anything on 2 wheels, in regards to 2 wheels. And then, looked at in the 4 wheels, and in the 4 wheels as well, you had lots of boys, not many girls. So I'm like, I'm going to change that. So this is what we are doing. So we are doing events and tournament and activation where we try to get more diversity, inclusion, equity, and accessibility. Because this is one of the important things we often forget. But with esports, we can do that. We can give a possibility of people that are on a wheelchair or have a disability to actually enjoy our sport. So, yeah, this is what we're doing.
Thanks. Go ahead, Taylor.
That's great. So as you mentioned, I had started working at Disney through college, and I tried to graze through the actress part because even in an interview, that's the only thing people want to talk about. But it was really important because Disney used to own the Angels. I was from a big baseball family, so when I had the opportunity to hop down the street, I did. At Disney, I was a character actress, but I started working on their sponsorship sales internship program, and then ended up working in sponsorship sales for the Angels. Once I was there for a couple of years, I started realizing that I was seeing a lot of my sponsorship dollars as I was going to renew contracts, seeing them go to esports and gaming and other places. And I realized that I should probably follow the money. So I started getting into just researching and realizing how fast the industry was growing. And I was so interested in it that I realized I probably wasn't going to be able to go to a large developer or publisher. So I ended up leaving my job at the Angels and moved to Charlotte, was working for a small startup that was focused on Rocket League. Ended up working with NASCAR while I was there and brought them on as a partner and ended up making the transition 4 or 5 months ago.
Fantastic. Thank you. Ashlee?
So what brought me here is probably a family trait of needing to know everything. But in today's world, it translates to constant curiosity. So I think that sounds a lot better. But I grew up around racing. My dad was a flat track motorcycle racer. And then I spent a lot of years at dirt tracks all over the country, Silver Crown, sprint car, midget car racing. But it was always for fun. Never did I see a career. And it wasn't until I really started watching the business and seeing how important the business side of racing was. Those dollars that come into the industry, and that's what makes it go around. And so I got my first job in USAC, and then that quickly translated into a job at an agency, Motorsports marketing agency, which was JMI, and had the opportunity to work with big brands all over the world and develop and negotiate big deals and be a part of big programs. But ultimately for me, I think it's always wanting to know more and explore more. And when this whole world of Web3 technologies came up, it just made me dig in. One, because I had to. We had a sponsor in the space. But the other, because I knew that it was a way to bring new fans in. And that is kind of my ultimate goal in all things I do.
Thank you.
My background is in educational software, actually. It's a 100-year-old company that I'd worked for, and I got the opportunity to go to iRacing. It was a startup at that point. And I thought, keep my job with this existing company or try this new startup. I knew that with iRacing, there'd be more growth and opportunity, so I decided to take the plunge into that. My background was technical prior to that, and I carried those skills over to iRacing. And then throughout the years, we've seen just the growth of it. And full circle, iRacing is actually being used in schools, universities, colleges. So those skills actually from my past life have come to present, so it's pretty exciting.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing all that. So we really are talking about Web3 technology and all these things that operate within the Web3. And one of the it's really about the Metaverse and what that is and what that looks like. There's a lot of talk about how leagues are playing in the Metaverse, how Motorsports is playing in the Metaverse. As far as, how do you define it? We'll go back this way. So Angela, we'll go to you first. How do you define the Metaverse?
I think that the metaverse already exists, right? We've seen it in esport culture. I just think that we don't have a mainframe platform. But obviously being in the online space, we want to be part of it. We just are still kind of figuring out where and how we would do so. But I see that as the future, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Ashlee, do you have a thought?
Yeah, I really think about blockchain technologies. I think that their blockchain started getting attention with NFTs. And I think it's like any form of marketing where there needs to be that big, flashy thing. I'll always remember where I was when NBA Top Shots launched, and that just kind of turned the world upside down. And so NFTs are a part of blockchain technologies, but I think that we're just going to continue to see so many real world applications that are developed on blockchain. And they're not always going to be these flashy things like NFTs and collectibles, but they're going to be real world applications like keeping records, like showing a pass when you show up somewhere to elevate your experience. So that's where I've kind of spent my time educating myself and thinking about how does that then generate fandom in motorsports.
Excellent. Taylor, do you have a thought on the metaverse?
Yeah, I think the metaverse can mean several things. I do think just because we are in this emerging space, it can be somewhat of a buzzword. So for me specifically, what it means, because my role is looking at where is NASCAR currently showing up in existing video games and where should we be showing up in places that we're not. Things like Roblox. Roblox is a perfect example of an area where your avatar can drop into an existing game and experience real world activities and, racing. They can be at a race, but they're sitting in their chair in their game. Through Oculus, through VR, like there's so many different ways, but it's really just bringing in real world experiences on a digital platform.
Stefy?
I think the definition I like to use is, and the metaverse is a seamless confluence between the digital and the in real life world. So yes, pretty much, as you guys are saying, we have the opportunity. Gaming is a lead into the metaverse. All the kids that play, in gaming, whatever that is, not just motorsport games, even Fortnite, Rocket League, like you said, they know and they live that kind of life. For us, we might be a little bit older. We need to look at it into a way, okay, how can we be part of this war where the kids are, and how we can make that meaningful and authentic.
It's interesting because my first experience with the metaverse and the way I really understand it, my kids play Fortnite. And they're in the metaverse all the time, right? They have the avatars, they're charging, they're doing things, they're in there. So it's any application. It's really just an online world. And what's interesting to see is how many ways it's developing. And then you get the NFTs and the cryptocurrencies that all get involved into the metaverse. And it's just one big online community that eventually we're all going to be there. And the sporting events and motorsports is going to be there. We did mention NFTs. I want to go back to you, Ashlee. Talk about define an NFT for people that aren't familiar with that type of technology. Can you define it and talk about it a little bit? And also how you've been using it at Andretti to support your sponsors.
Yep, I think NFTs are non-fungible tokens, which basically still tells us nothing. That means nothing. So digital collectible. And I think how digital collectibles translate to the sports world is 40% of sports fans are collectors. This is just a new form of collecting in a digital format. The way that we've looked at it in Andretti, I've been at Andretti for about 18 months, but before that, my history is all about looking at how brands can connect with consumers through sports. And so the first step we took when all of these new technologies, flashy technologies come out is where can be that fit? You're always eager to try the new thing and run towards that. But first you have to know your audience and you have to know your brand and you have to know what's authentic. We had a unique situation where we have Avalanche, which is a blockchain, an eco-friendly blockchain. They're our title sponsor in Formula E, so we had a great resource in them and a need to create some real world applications. Created a great plan with that. But part of that, knowing that this is a kind of a dicey world to jump into, especially within the motorsports community, we really created some filters of what does an NFT have to do for us and have to do for our brand. One of those was it has to elevate the experience for the fan, no question. The second was it has to create a benefit for our partners. And finally, it was we have to own the IP. That's been a big challenge in NFTs. And so as we created our plan, we made sure it hit all those marks. And we came down to just about a week before launch and realized that there were some significant friction points in the wallet technologies. And when we look at that against the filters of success, we realized we weren't there yet. And we had to stay true to our fans and to our brand, Andretti is about trust and reliability and performance. And so we knew we had to work out some kinks in those technology elements before we would move forward. So that's how we've looked at NFTs and where they fit the business now or not. For us, it's mostly about timing of launch.
So it's interesting in the NFT space. I did a little research this morning before coming in. If y'all want to Google Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs, one NFT, the trading value on a Bored Ape a Yacht Club NFT is $180,000 on that one NFT, which is crazy. But it just shows you, and then there's others out there that are $5 and $10. And I know the speedways, I know here at Charlotte Motor Speedway and SMI, they've got an NFT program for the Coke 600 they did this year, and Daytona 500 did a collectible with their NFTs too. So it is a collectible, and it'll be interesting to see how they change value.
Yeah, I think it's rare to have those really big dollar
You have to
NFTs.
be like LeBron, right?
Yeah, and I think it's awesome for the creator network, this whole creator culture to now have this forum for artists to sell their digital art. I think there's a great place for that. But I think that every brand that's trying to jump in and going, yes, this is going to be a new revenue stream, that's not necessarily the case. And I think there's some different ways to do it. You just have to be specific about what works for your brand.
And strategic about it.
Yeah, and strategic.
So let's talk about gaming and esports. Taylor and Stefy are gaming esports. Why don't you define what's the difference between esports and gaming?
I can take that. So esports is the competitive gameplay of a particular video game. Typically that's going to happen at the collegiate level or the professional level. There's going to be an organized league around it. I think esports and gaming, kind of that vernacular gets a little fluid sometimes, but specifically esports is going to be like an iRacing league. It's, it's competitive gameplay.
Mm-hmm. I have a data here. Do you know that a third of the world population identify as a gamer? Yeah. A third of the world population. And the good thing is like half of that are women. Mm-hmm. So for me specifically in our business and all of us, we should look at that. This is very, very powerful. We can try to figure out ways to get these kids. We always talk about how to bring new people into motorsport. There it is. Like if we can try to get gamers and specifically gamers that plays in esport, to become a little bit part of the industry, then we can turn them into consumer of motorsport. Because in esport per se, people will be competing, but not everybody is going to become a champion. But if we get them hooked into the sport, then we can get them, okay, so then you can maybe come to a race. Now you're doing it digitally, why not come to a race, right? And it's just a beautiful possibility here that we should all look into it very hard.
I know when we were talking earlier, preparing our remarks, one of the things that was a common theme about these types of technologies is the accessibility and the diversification. You don't have to be at the facility, you don't have to be in a car, you can be in your living room in a simulator or playing on your Xbox or whatever. You can actually, it's more accessible to people from that. So why should, Taylor, from a league standpoint, why should NASCAR be in these spaces? What's the strategy and what is it trying to achieve by having a whole esports program?
Sure. So when I'm thinking of video games and not just specifically esports, I've got an XY grid that I look at every day that basically breaks out segmentation. So here's a hyper casual fan, and here's someone who's a hardcore fan who maybe has their own sim rig at home. They're racing every night, but also everybody in this room has a phone. And talk about accessibility, that's huge. We can build games that someone, if they've never been to a race and they might not go to one anytime in the future, they will still have exposure to our brand. So again, talking about growing a new audience and a new fan base, we need to do that and show up in games that are casual, that may be a little bit, not as expected. So I think that's one of the huge things, just the amount of reach that it has to grow a new audience.
If I can interject 1 second, there is in reality 3 verticals. So one is the mobile industry, which is every one of you probably plays some sort of game on the phone. Then you have the what we identify more like arcade type of games, which are console games. So these people, they tend to be more like casual player. And then you get the third and final one, that is the esports. So it's the more professional gamer. And all of these people, they tend to play on PC. But the very good thing about that is like then when people start to play seriously, they are investing, right? So buying a PC is more expensive than getting a phone or a console. So all of a sudden now you have somebody that is very much into what they are doing. And these people are the one that we can turn definitely into becoming consumer of our industry.
It's great to think about those three different verticals. Angela, talk about the simulators and kind of access. I know you're doing a lot of STEM and educational outreach.
Yeah, so basically the simulator is a piece of software that mimics real world, right? So for iRacing, it mimics what you do on the track, from suspension, making a change there, for having a spotter, whether you have one or you want to participate as one, or just learning, maybe you're an engineer and you're using the telemetry data to help better yourself. So there's so many different avenues you can take with it. I think automatically people just think, oh, it's a game and it's just a toy and you play with it. But there's real world drivers that have used it to actually train on tracks, and they've become successful doing so. There's actually drivers that didn't have maybe the funds to become a race car driver, or maybe they just weren't in the location, that were actually found on iRacing and now are racing at the top level. So it's really a great tool, for training esports, but also like to get into the industry.
Go ahead.
When I was at Aero McLaren, that was throughout the pandemic. So pandemic started right around that time. And one of the IndyCar drivers was Pato O'Ward. And Pato was new to the team, and he's new to his relationship with his engineer. So he actually used iRacing and the IndyCar program them to start to develop a relationship with the engineer, just to think about strategy, to think about communication. Pato was terrible at iRacing, and he got so frustrated. And so it really helped them work through frustrations, on the track. So it was really interesting from an education perspective and a learning perspective how that can help a real life scenario.
Yeah, and that's a true testament. If you can use it in real life, if you can carry that over, then we did what we were supposed to do.
Go ahead, Stefy.
I wanted to just add a couple things onto what you guys just said. One is that, do you know that you could teach a math and physics class on a simulator game? That's powerful. Like if we want kids that they are not as fortunate, they're going public school, and we can figure it out, a teacher that has this kind of passion, I mean, that classroom is going to be the most popular one because you are bringing gaming in, right? And so there is so many good things that we can use. And motorsport and sim racing specifically, it is the only esport that lead into in real life. And this has been proven. There is a gentleman from the UK a couple of years ago that he comes from the gaming world, esport world, never set foot on a real, racing car. He got so good in online competition that then he got picked out by a real racing team. The very first race he did, he won it. And that's impressive, So, yeah, and the other thing I was going to touch on is the fact that we all know that racing is expensive, right? So gaming, it's another way to look in a way to get people to just get a first taste of it, because you can get a wheel and pedals and a console to just get involved with that, and it sets you off $300. It's a fraction of what it costs a go-kart, and tires and whatnot. So there are all of these great opportunity. We can look into it.
Pathways for participants, but also pathways for fans. I know that William Byron, the NASCAR driver, went to high school with my kids, and he learned on a simulator. And now everybody at their school is now following NASCAR because they know him and they went to school. So it's a real life example of that. I do want to leave time for questions, and I don't want to go over time because I am a lawyer and I'm a rule follower, so I will end on time. I wanted to talk. We've talked a lot about education and education opportunities, but also job opportunities. Where do you see job opportunities really in this new technology? What kind of jobs are available? Employment.
Well, I think, again, from sim racing and getting people involved into the industry, anybody can take any road that they want. So they can become broadcaster, like Amanda is. They can become an engineer. They can become a part of the industry in whatever capacity. It's just about giving them a little bit of a taste. Like, hey, this is what it could be about, and then open it up all of the opportunity. Like I said at the very beginning, nobody's going to be a race car forever, or actually not everybody's going to be interested in becoming that particular job, of racing, but they can be part of the industry as a whole.
You have thoughts?
Yeah, so when I think about the day-to-day of my job and what I'm actually doing, it's business development. I'm reaching out to a lot of these publishers and developers, looking at opportunities, how we can work together. I'm looking at contracts and licensing for the use of our IP once we do, kind of negotiate those deals. And then I'm creating go-to-market strategy for, once we're launching. So that's, 3 different verticals that I'm doing within my one job. So I think that those opportunities exist across our company and across the industry, whether it be driving, partnership marketing, whatever it may be. So I think there's going to be a couple emerging spaces.
Yeah, both of you mentioned protection of the IP, Ashlee and Taylor, protection of the IP, and we do a lot of intellectual property work, but the trademark space and having those licenses and making sure that your brand is represented, and each new iteration of technology is it's a huge legal challenge, and brands are doing a lot to protect. There's actually a lot of litigation right now. Nike's got a lawsuit and a couple different lawsuits over protecting your brand, but you've got to make sure that your licenses are specific and that they're binding when you're using your brand in a complete new technology. So
I might fall on the unpopular side of this, but I believe in kind of letting loose of the brand and the IP and putting it in the hands of the creators, and not looking so specifically through a lens of my brand has to show up in exactly this format, but instead, how do I make it show up really appealing in this entire environment? So we're taking this approach of maybe being a little less precious about the brand and how it shows up and just loosening the reins. But then on the flip side of that, when we think about creating content and creating NFTs and part of our NFT strategy, where we ran into a lot of challenges is, you have this network and you have driver agreements and you have track agreements and you have a photographer, or you have the broadcaster that actually captured this image or captured this video clip in time, and who owns that? And I think that's all the stuff that's starting to play out now. That I didn't want to get ourselves into on the Andretti side. So trying to create unique assets that we knew were free of issues of us infringing on others' IP, even though we may be a little more open to letting others use our IP.
Right, your lawyers don't like that.
Right, you know.
I know. I do want to. Does anybody have any questions for our panelists?
In the words of Connie Nyholm, I hate to be the a-hole here.
I know.
I was told we are, unfortunately, no time for Q&A at this point.
Oh, okay.
But a round of applause for the panel. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news there.